Hey, this is Carrie from Wrap Your Head Around Silks. This is the Expecting Aerialist podcast. How's it going, guys? Hope you had a wonderful Easter weekend. Before we get started, in the show notes, there is a link to what I have been working on. There's going to be a 3-part video series called Aerial Rehab, helping us get back into the air after a long break, an injury, surgery, or a pregnancy. So check that out if you want to sign up to receive that in your inbox. And today we have Brenda Hamilton. She recently choreographed the aerial for Carrie Underwood's performance on the Country Music Awards. And she's also the choreographer for Reflections, the Carrie Underwood Vegas residency that comes back, and you could get tickets for May. So Brenda is an old friend of mine, and she's just in this amazing position right now, doing this awesome gig. Let's get started. Everyone, this is Brenda Hamilton. I've actually known Brenda for years and years and years and years. Back when I was still a dancer and you were already working with Tanya, my other very good friend and Brenda's aerial partner.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
How long have you been in the air, Brenda?
You know, it's so funny. I was thinking about that. It's been at least 15 years, but I want to say maybe 17. I don't know. I could be lying, but it's been a minute.
No, I think that's probably correct because I started aerial in 2007. And I feel like I saw you in the air on gigs where I was just dancing. Like we did this job. I don't know if you remember me from this, but we did this job called Asia Entertainment. Do you remember this?
Gosh, so long ago.
Yeah, and Johanna, and I butcher her last name every single time I try to say it.
Johanna Sapaki?
Yes.
Yeah.
That. You guys were on that. I don't know if Tanya was on it, but I hadn't even like dipped my toe in the circus world yet.
Right.
So I was like, oh, what they're doing is so cool.
Isn't it crazy? And now you're doing it.
And now I'm doing it. And it's been also,
a long time, right?
13, 14 years for me. So
okay, so yeah, it has been that long because
it's been a long time. And Brenda, I'm very close friends with Tanya, her partner. So when this was kind of brewing, the Carrie Underwood gig, I was hearing about it and I'm like, oh my God, this is so exciting. It's just another like huge mainstream performer besides Pink.
Right.
Wanting aerial in the show and it being such a big part of their presentation.
It was just the coolest thing because she's never had, I think she had dancers in like a video or maybe a one-off performance, but she's never had dancers or aerialists or anything in any of her live shows. It's always just her and the band. So to do something like this was like a huge step for them to take.
Yeah.
So cool.
I've heard about this a long time where she just, she does her tours by herself usually.
Right.
Back in 2009, I danced for her for the American Music Awards.
Oh, you did? That's so cool.
I did. I don't know if you remember Cathy Jean, the choreographer.
Of course I remember her, yes.
And then Raj Kapoor, who is now the executive producer of Grammys
right.
overall. But yeah, she never had dancers and aerialists on tour with her. And so what the gig actually was, we're kind of talking about the CMT Awards, which just happened.
Right.
Because that was more like, I think more people saw it. But Brenda, you got signed onto the project to do the Vegas residency.
Right. Reflections.
So tell us how this happened. How did you get this gig?
Oh my gosh. Well, Barry, I don't know if you know who Barry is, but Barry Lather is Carrie's creative director. And I've known Barry since I was in high school. He married one of the girls from our hometown dance studio. Like crazy. Like I've known him for like 30 years, dude. Like, for a really long time. But then we didn't talk for many, many, many years. And then, gosh, maybe 12, 13 years ago, we reconnected because I was doing aerial and we worked on the CMTs together, country music too, but it was with another artist, and we just reconnected and we're like, oh my gosh, how are you? And ever since then, we've just been working together. Anytime he needs any aerial in any of his shows or, anything he's working on, he would reach out to me. And usually, sometimes it'd be for something that I wasn't going to perform on, but usually I was performing. And then this time he reached out to me it was still pandemic times. And he was like, what are you doing, in November? And I was like, I don't know, because the world shut down. But, he was telling me that he had this project coming up and, slowly but surely I found out what it was. And, it was really exciting. And, we were looking for different aerialists who could also dance and, talking about performing and all this stuff. And then I just thought, I've been wanting to choreograph and do exactly what I'm doing right now on this show and the CMTs for like the last 10 years. It's been my goal. So it's been, slow moving. Is this ever going to happen? This transition that I want to make? I wasn't so sure, but then, through conversation with Barry, I just asked, I said, I said, I'd really like to be considered to be the aerial choreographer and coordinator for this job. And I emailed it to him, and then I was like, seemed really normal when I emailed it. And then I sent it off, and then I thought, oh my gosh, did I just do that? Like I just literally asked for, this position.
and there wasn't, did he say he wanted Ariel in it, or you brought the idea to him?
No. He had said that he wanted, it was his idea to bring Ariel on board because, as her creative director, he's been with her, I think, for like 7 or 8 years now. He does everything for her, unless it's something like the Grammys where Raj is directing it. All the stage stuff, he's in charge of the concept and creation, and he's a genius. He's an absolute genius. But he had thought, when they decided to do this Vegas residency, that is Vegas, like you need to up the ante a bit, right? And like, let's bring in dancers and let's bring in aerialists and like, let's add some, some more layers to her already incredible voice, right? So it was all his idea. So he reached out to me and said that he, wanted to incorporate Ariel into the show. And we started talking about that and what that would mean and how many numbers and things like that. And as we were discussing it, that's when I thought, oh, geez, I really want to be on the other side of this, So that's when I asked him if, I basically said, this is what I would like to do on this project. And so he wrote back and asked for my reel. He presented it to the upper management, and, we'd also, he said, it's not like he's just pulling a friend into a project. It's something we've worked together for 12 plus years, and he knows my capabilities. And, basically he pitched me, and it happened like that, either that night or the next day. He's like, okay, you're doing it.
Oh my God. And you know what, Brenda, like the thoughts that I was having when like Tanya was telling me kind of like, this is happening, this is brewing. I was just so happy for you and proud of you, even though kind of like I hadn't talked to you, but because when people end up getting gigs and I don't want to say they don't deserve it, but you so deserve it. You know what I'm saying? You've been in it for so long and you've done your time.
Thank you so much. I think that's one of the things that, aside from finding myself in this position, which is just extraordinary, what surprised me the most about it is the support that I've received from everybody in the community.
I love it.
Because sometimes you hear, there's not always kind words towards people.
Right.
Sometimes, depending. Right. But I've received nothing unless there's something I don't know about. I've received nothing but support from everyone in this community, and like really like genuine support and happiness. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Like that's, ultimately the way it should be, is that we're all happy for each other in our success and our growth and opportunities, and, speaking of Johanna Sapaki, we had talked about this years ago, and she said, we were just talking about how there's room for everybody to succeed.
Yeah.
And I said, it's the whole country. She said, Brenda, it's the whole world. And I guess what I'm saying is I appreciate it. Thank you. And I've just been really touched by how cool and supportive and happy everyone's been,
Yeah. I mean, speaking of Johanna, like, again, one of the same thought I had when for the Super Bowl, she had choreographed the pole for J-Lo. And it's one of these things where for the people out there who are looking at people like you and me, like, how do you walk this labyrinth of this industry and actually end up being in these positions? I really, truly believe it is the marriage of the exact right moment of opportunity coming together with preparedness.
It is. You're right. It is absolutely.
Well, and then networking, because it's every single time I ask this question, like, how exactly did you get in this position? It's roughly the same answer of, I've been cultivating this relationship with this person for a long time. There's never really there's got to be a trust there first, because it's a lot of money going into these shows.
Right. And it's a huge risk to add something like, and the truth is you could be the most talented person in the world, but if somebody doesn't give you an opportunity, you don't get to do it. Right. So like, it's such, like you said, it's such somebody needs to take a chance on you. Somebody needs to give you that opportunity, and you have to also, like you said, be ready for it. And, like, I've been working my entire life towards something like this. Johanna, my God, I've never met another dancer aerialist who works as hard as she does. Like, she deserves every second of what, every opportunity or every success that she gets. And so many of my friends, we work so hard. And I think that sometimes people don't know that in and out work, every single day, how much work and years. And like you said, cultivating relationship and trust and tenacity, like the willingness to keep going, even when things aren't flying high.
The other thing that I always noticed about you and Tanya, because you guys came before me when it comes to just training and getting your foot indoors and stuff like that. What I was always impressed with is that you guys ended up, I think because you had to, being on so many different apparatuses. Like,
right.
You guys have acts on everything I can think of. A part of being ready for that is putting the time in on every single one of these apparatuses, because
for sure.
That's why it takes so long, I think, because when you start out, you're like a silks person.
Right.
Or you're a hoop person. And then it takes years to get proficient at that. And you're like, oh shit, there's like 8 different apparatuses.
Right. I mean, and some of it translates over, right? But it is definitely, they're different beasts for sure. And I think that's what's so different about what we do from traditional circus. When I first started this, there weren't a lot of aerialists yet. There were, but it was very circus based, and a lot of those people that I met early on in my career had one act. Like, they did their silks act. They did this and they've been doing it for 10 years and it's polished and amazing, but that's what they do, and for me and Tanya and everybody, for me particularly, like, I think of myself more as a dance aerialist, like a dancer in the air, like bringing aerial dance, I guess, than circus, because that flow and then using different shapes and different apparatuses to me just felt natural, because you have a different song. You're not going to use the same apparatus creatively. Right.
I have not seen the Reflections show yet. I did see the Grammys, CMT Awards, and it looks like you had silks and hammock. But for the Reflections, can you talk a little bit about the creative process and what choices were made and why, and
all
of that?
Yeah. Well, Barry, again, is the creative director, right? So everything comes through him and is born initially from him. And then he, would say to me, these are the songs that are going to have aerial in them. This is what I'm thinking. We want to have, like, there's 3 aerial numbers. The show is amazing, by the way. It's ridiculous. Like, it's so good. The entire show, not just the aerial stuff. the production value is insane. But he would say, at the end, there's this big waterfall, this big water wall, and we want it to look watery. We want, I'm thinking silks because it's smooth and watery. So like that was pretty set from the beginning. Oh my God. And then there's a song Blown Away, which is, for anyone not familiar with Carrie's music, this one's, very stormy and big. And, they were thinking, they often have like wind and tornadoes and, and images for this song. So the idea was to have aerial spirals in the air that would look like tornadoes right up in the sky. And, when I first took on this job, I was thinking, yes, I'm going to be the aerial coordinator and choreographer, and I'm just going to create, and I'm going to, and the truth is that there's so much, as you probably know, there's so much work on the other side, safety and getting the apparatuses approved and certified, and there's so much more than you would ever imagine, and so we got caught up in, one, finding somebody who could create this because it's very hard to bend the metal. Two, could we get it certified in time? Three, the longevity. It was like this, and so I was doing all this research on these spirals. I spent so long, Carrie, I can't tell you, like trying to find this and find somebody who can make it in time, and can we get it approved? And then it was like, this isn't going to happen. Like, we need to find another idea. So then we were thinking, should we use these spheres? It's really a process of like what's going to work visually and also be safe. We didn't have a lot of time to have the apparatuses fabricated and put through the inspection process. Like, it's hardcore. It's not like you just build something and put it up in the air. It has to last for years and keep aerialists safe, right? So you need to make sure it's certified. So like we just kept running into, we had probably 3 or 4 different apparatuses that, we were trying to have done. And then it has to go through different approvals. And we ended up using Hoop. And I was like, dude, Hoop? Hoop is my least favorite, least proficient apparatus. I was pooping my pants because I was like, oh my God, how am I going to make, like, it's a lot of pressure. It's a big show. How am I going to make a Hoop look cool? I'm not cool on Hoop.
Okay, sorry, Brenda, but you're cool on all of it. I understand what you're saying because Hoop is not my primary. It's not my jammiest jam, but I've seen what you did on that Hoop act, and it's gorgeous. Well, but
the thing, though, I think what happened is because Hoop is my least, I go through cycles with the apparatuses, but like it's at that particular point, it was my least favorite apparatus, and I was like, really like. I kept trying to pitch different apparatuses, even though it was already chosen, because I was like, I don't want to do Hoop, But I think because I felt that way about it, I had to put more time and more creativity into it because it wasn't something that was in my comfort zone. And then what happened is it turned out so good. It's my favorite number in the whole show.
Oh my God, I love it.
Aerial stuff, which was really cool.
But did it go through your mind that you were like, how many hours I spent researching like how to bend steel into a spiral, and they end up using a Hoop, which is.
Well, I mean, it was it was hard, and it was the first time I had gone through something like that where, there's time constraints, and there's like, also we were just coming out of the pandemic, and I thought, I don't know, like for me, my work ethic is very strong. So if somebody calls me, I'm going to call them back right away, and I wasn't getting answers from people, and I wasn't getting phone calls returned. And I was like, I'm on a schedule here, guys, so it was stressful. And, it was definitely like, wow, we just went through all this and we ended up with a Hoop. What, but again, like in hindsight, it was the exact right thing for that number. I can't imagine that number having those big spirals. It wouldn't have been powerful enough because those things can't move quickly. It's really interesting how I'm learning, and I've learned through this process that's been tumultuous in some ways and super exciting in other ways, that to trust the process, because it always ended up being the right thing in the end, regardless of how many hours I spent researching bending metal,
like the performance is the performance, but like however many jobs try to hire an aerialist without having the coordinator, there's a million questions in between.
Well, I think what it is an education process, and like you said, yeah, it's really important to have somebody be in that role strictly for safety, first and foremost, and to be the between the aerialists and whoever is trying to fly them or whatever the client wants to have happen. I was really shocked by how many details and how much needed to happen for this job. I had no idea it was going to be this complicated, but, I was like, when Barry first said, okay, you're doing this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like, how am I going to, I was all nervous about the choreography. And then I was like, oh my God, like for the first month of this, like the choreography was the last thing in my mind because there was so much to do before that even started. That creative process, right?
Right. It's like the last 25%.
I know, it's great. And it's not always what you think it's going to be. Right. Like, but I feel like I'm learning every day still. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reaction from, so the CMT Awards, it was just a wonderful presentation of aerial on a mainstream platform, as has Pink in the past.
Right.
But she's like the only one famous for doing it. So like what has been the feedback since then? Like, I'm sure it's a lot to kind of absorb.
It is. It's bizarre because in some ways I'm like, yeah, this is totally normal. And then I take a second and I'm like, what is happening? Like, it's crazy. Like it's really blown up. That particular number with Carrie flying, and by the way, that is the first time she's ever been in the air.
Wow.
We had a total of, I would say, like 2 lessons together. She worked on her own. Then we had a rehearsal on stage. Like, it's insane what she was able to accomplish while singing and spinning and being up high for her first performance. Like, it's crazy talk.
Because it's so disorienting.
It's a testament to, people get sick spinning all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just a testament to, like, just the work ethic. The second we got done with our first lesson, they were flying back to Nashville, and she said, I need something put up in my, I need a hammock put up in my gym so I can practice. Like the second she was done, she's like, I need to practice, which is so cool. But, the reaction to this has been outstanding. Like, everyone loves it. And of course people are, here and there comparing it to Pink.
Right. Right.
We really tried to do something different and ethereal and, like a different, like, artistic vision than just somebody being in the air, like just to make it different, knowing that being on a hammock, of course a lot of things have been done before, but we really tried to create a different picture. And I think we accomplished that.
What I loved is that you could read it. Like, the movement is you could read the movement from the audience perspective, because, for example, the performance that Taylor Swift did with all the umbrellas and the guys in suits.
Right.
Now, also epic. So epic. Like, so much happening.
Amazing. Beautiful.
Beautiful. So much happening. But you couldn't really see what was happening because there was so much happening. Right. I guess.
And a lot of that has to do with the camera shots and who's choosing that. Again, Barry is very hands-on with all of this stuff. Like, everything filters through him. So even though I was choreographing, there's a lot of, I'm losing the word right now, but working together, collaboration, a lot of collaboration together. And then when it comes time for the camera shots, the CMT crew came in and we had a whole rehearsal where they were choosing the different shots. Barry was right. He's always there. And he's watching the shots, and he had a lot of input as to which shots were ultimately chosen and edited and put in, because it is telling a story, and it is important to be able to see what's happening and what the intention of the piece was. And I think that sometimes, you'll see a performance on a television show and you'll be like, well, what? That's it? Like what? Or what was that? And it's just often because of the editing. It just wasn't edited. Barry was a dancer and a choreographer and a director, and like he gets the movement right. So, and he did that even way back with the CMT Awards. The shots he chose for that were stunning, and so it really highlights the artist, but it also gives you a feel for what the whole piece is. And it's just such a talent and a skill. To be able to put something like that together in a way. And like, by the way, the aerial in that piece was only 1.5 minutes long total.
Really?
Yeah. The song's 3 minutes. And then the whole of the aerial was 1.5 minutes. And I have to say, like, I probably worked more on that aerial piece than anything else I've ever worked on for 1.5 minutes.
You mean switching out the choreography for this or that?
Switching out the choreography, and also like ahead of time, which apparatus are we going to use? How are we going to create a flowy feel? We initially it was like we were looking at a huge sphere. Like we had all these different apparatuses, ideas for it, and then it was like, okay, are we going to tie fabric on the apparatuses? And I was like, geez, I don't know that that's going to be that safe. How can we do it? So I spent a whole day, and Tanya was like filming me too, at the space on a bunch of different apparatuses with fabric hanging down from the apparatuses, like to create this feel. And it's like, no, that's not really working. And then it was like, oh, well, what about making the costume the flowy part, not the apparatus, and then we were on another apparatus, and then they decided on hammocks. Like it just kept switching. So it was like a lot of workshopping, different ideas.
So how many iterations did you go through for that number?
You mean how many versions?
Yeah.
Oh my dude, I can't even count. So many, and like so many different versions. And then like, how are we gonna like? We're going to have the aerials go up, and then we want the aerialist to go down while Carrie's going up to counter that, to make it look more impressive. And then it's like, oh, well, that's not really working. So then I would choreograph it and make it like perfect to submit it. And then it's like, oh, that's not really going to work. Okay. So we're going to try a different version now. Or, at one point I had finished, a whole version with everyone's choreography, including what I was giving Carrie to do. And I was like so in love with this version, like what I had created with it in this 1.5 minutes, the pictures and this. And then it was like, oh, you know what? I think it's going to be stronger. I got feedback. It's going to be stronger if everyone's doing the same thing at the very end. So they're one unit, same thing as, same choreography as Carrie. And then it was like, oh my God, like I have to choose what to take out now. And what I've learned in this process, and it's really new to me, is to not get attached to what I've created. Because it is a collaboration, I have to be open. And the funny thing is I'd get really attached and like almost upset, like, oh God, I really liked this version and I worked so hard. And, but then what always happens, and particularly with Barry, is that the final result ended up better than anything I would have done in any of the previous versions. Like it's been a really cool process to watch, and it's been really interesting learning situation for me, because often I will trust the first thing that comes out of my body with the music, because that's where my creativity comes from. And it's kind of taught me wow, that could be the first thing that comes out of my body, and I really like it, but is there something that's better? Could it go a little deeper? Could it go a little further? And yes, the choreography was very simple for the CMTs, but it was also really effective. And I think that's what I'm learning throughout this, is to, like I said before, is to trust the process, and particularly my relationship with Barry. He's like a master. I feel like he's like Yoda, and I'm a Padawan. Yeah. I'm like, like bowing
Well,
down.
and when I said it was readable and simple, I should have, that is the word I was searching for. It was effective, because I just see a lot of people doing a lot of stuff.
Right.
And then it doesn't get a point across, and there's no memorable feeling that you end up with necessarily.
Right. Once we decided, okay, it's going to be a costume. The costume's going to be the flowy part. I was like, okay, can I get a costume, or like a mock-up of a costume, so I can figure out what we can do on this hammock and not get caught with this fabric, because that's a whole nother thing. Like, I had all these ideas that I wanted to put in, and then I'm like, wait a minute, there's this big piece of fabric hanging back there,
Yeah.
And the Carrie's costume designer is brilliant too. But also, like, there were so many projects going on. The workload of that team is insane. Like, they work so hard. But I couldn't get a costume. We didn't have a costume until we were in Vegas doing a rehearsal.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so my husband works in fabric. So he's getting me all these pieces of fabric, and he got me this, and I'm like safety pinning and stuff to the back of my, pants. And trying to figure out choreography and what it could look like and how the fabric would flow and all that, like not knowing what the costume was actually ultimately going to be. So that was a whole process too. It's just really funny because, like, you would never know watching. Like you said, it's effective, but it is very simple. What happened in that number is very simple, but the amount of work and effort and time on everyone's part, not just mine, is extraordinary. It just gives you a whole new respect for every number, that you just never know what people are doing to make that happen. And, we had versions where they start, the aerialists didn't start in the air. They started in the air. They sat up there for the first minute and a half of the song, and they got lowered in, which is beautiful. We also had versions where they were laying on the floor, and you have to create all these different versions, put it together, film it to see how it's going to look, before you get there to teach them on their dark days in between their other shows. It's
yeah.
The aerialists work so hard. The crew had to work so hard. They had to renovate that entire stage in between show days for reflection to this whole different look with a different motor being hung. And like, it's crazy how many people it takes to make something so beautiful, but simple happen, seemingly simple.
Like, this is expensive. This is an expensive process.
Yes.
And when people want this amazing, glorious flying element and they have no budget for it and don't understand why they would need that, that's so frustrating.
Again, yeah, I think more than anything, it's a slow education. Like, because they don't know. It looks simple. Oh, they just come down from the sky and do this, right? Like, but behind that, if it's done correctly and in a safe way, there's a lot that has to go into it. There's all kinds of people working back there to make it safe and happen. And it is expensive. It's really expensive. There's 5 motors for that number, high speed winches, a brand new one had to be put in to make that happen. Actually, they had to deconstruct another prop from Reflections in order to make this one happen. And thank goodness, the companies that Carrie's team have chosen to work with are so high end and professional and safe. And they have, any times the aerialist or Carrie or anybody were in the air or even on stage, they had a whole safety team there to ensure that they were going to be safe, and that's the way it should be. But people don't know that. It's not just, let's just hang this motor somewhere. It's going to be fine. But with the other, people you're talking about, I think it really is our responsibility to educate them about it. People are putting their lives on the line every time they go in the air. And like you said, the role of aerial coordinator becomes extremely important in those moments.
I have a hard time answering this question, so I'm wondering if I ask you this question, if you'll have a great answer for
challenge
people out there. Is that imagine you're listening to this and you're a young person and you love aerial. How do you get from there to here? It's a very hard question. I have trouble answering this one myself.
I think the most important thing you can do is have patience and understand that it's a process. It's not something that maybe for some people it happens overnight, but it's like I said earlier, it's the tenacity and the willingness to continue working and working and working, and getting more experience doing any opportunity, any performance opportunity you have, you take it. I started working in clubs doing atmosphere. I took every opportunity I personally, I can only speak for myself. So any opportunity I had to perform or do the next step in my aerial work, maybe a show that was a little higher, maybe something that was a different apparatus, get out of your comfort zone a little bit, always being safe and mindful, but and knowing that it's a process. You have to continually work and be patient with what opportunities will come to you. I don't know. It's so different now, Carrie, because like there's this whole social media thing, right? Which I didn't have when I was starting out. I think Sarah was the first one in our group that did social media, that did like Instagram, and had all the, like, got that big following and all that stuff. And I know that sometimes that's used for casting and whatnot, but for me, it's a pretty small community, the aerial world. Right. And so one of the best things that I learned as a dancer, because I was a dancer in the industry before I became an aerialist, was one of the lead dancers on a job I was doing said the best motto you can have is happy to be here, easy to work with. You show up fully. You're positive. You're a pleasure to work with. You're on time. You prove yourself over the years that, hey, I'm professional. Hey, I know what I'm doing. Hey, I'm training. Hey, it's not just an Instagram photo of me doing something cool. I can actually transition in and out, like working on your craft. Like it goes back to doing what you love and honing your craft and your art, and then allowing the opportunities to come to you rather than trying to force it. I have had people come to me and say, oh, I want to learn how to do this so I can perform, and it's kind of like a jump from like, I don't know what I'm doing to like, I want to be this performer and I want to have all this thing. And it's like, whoa, like it's an art and it's a craft and it takes a long time, for that to, like you said earlier, even transferring to different apparatuses and whatnot. I think it's almost, for lack of a better word, sometimes it feels like people want to like fast forward or almost cheat the process and not put the time into it. I think putting the time into your craft is the best thing that you can do, because people can feel that. People can feel if you're for real and you're doing this from a deep place. I hope that makes sense, because for me, that's where it's always lived, like if you aren't doing this because it's something you love and first and foremost is feeding your soul and you can share that with people, then it's kind of backwards to me. It doesn't have the depth, and people can feel depth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's kind of an abstract answer, I guess. But it's...
No, it makes sense. And I also feel like when it comes to like, you and I teach a lot.
Right.
We always have. You and I, particularly, some of our other friends choose not to teach a lot.
Right.
But we always have. And I cannot tell you the amount of talented individuals that I have taught who just didn't stick with it longer than a couple years.
Right.
Yeah. And not to say that they should have. There are many things to do in this world. And if you want to spend your time doing something else, you should absolutely do that. But it takes, I don't know, what did they say? 10,000 hours or whatever to
repetition, to master something. Yeah. Yeah. And it's art. Ultimately, it's art, so mastering something and mastering what is you, like you can look on Instagram and see people doing really good at all kinds of different aerial things, but what's you? Like, what's your expression going to be? For me, I live in musicality. I love musicality more than anything because it's from my dance background, right? So like, I think that that's one of the strengths I bring to things is that I want it to be musical. I want it to feel like dance in the air, even though it's, it's aerials and there's tricks and there's this, but it's finding what is unique and special to you that you can bring that will set you apart in one way because it's you. Like going back to what we said to, when I was talking to Johanna, like there's so much room for everybody because everyone's so unique. There's room for everybody to bring what's unique to them to the table and then be recognized for that eventually. Like I said, I've wanted to, and I'd say the same thing to some, like I've wanted to be in the position I'm in right now solidly for over 10 years. I've been working towards this and it's like, oh my gosh, like, is this like, where's my groove going to be? Am I ever going to step to the other side? And I think, like you said earlier, it's timing too. It's timing and it does happen at the right time. And so if you can prepare yourself and be diligent in your own art and what you're putting into it, you'll be ready when the time comes, and cultivating the relationships too.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like transferable advice across the board. It doesn't matter what field you're in.
Oh, for sure.
I for sure feel like that for all those young people listening, or if you're trying to change your career, like it just is that time and you have to commit to that thing and then let everything else kind of come. At least that is with art.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not the same as like, okay, you want to be, this kind of a doctor. There's a path for that. You go to this school, you go to undergrad, you do your, your medical, degree, you do your internship or, whatever you need to do with those steps. Like, it's not as straightforward for any art, but what I do know is that the longevity, like staying with it and cultivating your art and always challenging yourself to grow a little bit more, is for me what has helped. Yeah. Cause it's not, you can't say, and I think that's why that's a hard question to ask because there isn't one path in art. Like I said, it's not as straightforward as some of the other careers.
No, for sure. Okay, this bean is losing her mind. Usually she gives me about 56 minutes. And then totally melting. Brenda, anyway, I just want to say again how proud I am of you and like very excited for you. I feel like it just makes me so excited when something like this performance comes out because I just feel like there's more to come. Like more artists are going to want aerial. Like our aerial world is alive and well, Right. And it's especially encouraging after this whole pandemic. Yeah.
Because aerial is going to be probably one of the last things they would have brought back because it's expensive, like you said, it's like the icing on the cake for a lot of things. So it is exciting and thank you for bringing me on and thank you for being so supportive. It's really cool. And it gives me such faith in all of us, in the support that we have in this community.
Yeah. Like my students, like all sent me this clip, like
oh, really?
One of the reels. And they're like, do you know who choreographed it? I was like, I do know.
I do.
So they think I know everybody, but it just happens to be that it was you.
It's a small world, right? Like
at
this point, But again, thank you for bringing me on, and I really appreciate, all your kind words.
Thank you so much, Brenda, for being here and sharing your story. I really appreciate you taking out the time, and congratulate you again for such an amazing job on both the residency and the CMTs. So again, if you go to the show notes, you'll find a link there to sign up for the 3-part video series, Aerial Rehab, and tons of my other free resources on my website. And if you would honor me with a 5-star rating and a review anywhere you get your podcast, it really, really, really helps. I appreciate you guys if you've done that already. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend. I will talk to you guys next time. This is the Expecting Aerialist.